has the bracha of the Haftarah been tampered with?
At the outset, we need to make plain and state categorically that the Siddur, the collection of the tefilloth that we say on a daily and weekly basis and on the various hagim, the festivals, etc., the Siddur has been tampered with, without any doubt. The Siddur has been censored, just as the Talmud was censored and still is censored. In other words, there is no printed version of the Talmud in existence today which is entirely without censorship. Just as Rambam's Mishneh Torah was censored, and the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch, in fact all the major texts of the Torah, of Judaism, were deliberately tampered with and censored. It needs also to be said that sometimes this censorship was the result of direct actions taken by Christian censors appointed by the Church, who were authorized to make whatever changes they deemed necessary or desirable in all the various Jewish texts that they were able to put their hands on. Because this was, of course, a result of the advent of the printing press. Before printing became a reality, books were, of course, copied by hand. And then it was very difficult, essentially impossible, for the non-Jewish nations, for the Christian Church, and for others who may have been interested in doing so. It was essentially impossible for them to control what the Jews were writing and copying and studying. However, as soon as movable type and printing was invented, if you were able to install just one individual with governmental and church authority in the printing press where a Jewish book such as the Talmud or the Siddur was being printed, then you could immediately have a direct impact on what thousands and thousands of Jews would be reading next week or next month or 100 years from now. And therefore this became a very serious issue and endeavor. So sometimes this censorship was the result of direct, very deliberate and legally authorized censorship on the part of various governments, all under the influence of the Church, and sometimes it was the result of Jewish self-censorship, because the Jews knew that they were being watched and that various elements within non-Jewish society were interested in catching them out, so to speak, and finding some reference or statement which they could interpret to mean whatever it was they wanted it to mean, and then bring this to the attention of the government or the Church. And this, of course, could result in, it was actually impossible to know what this might result in. This could result in pogroms, in massacres, in all kinds of decrees against the Jews, against Judaism, as a result of such campaigns and such actions. Cartloads, many cartloads of Jewish texts, such as the Talmud, were burnt even before the advent of the printing press. And this was, of course, something the Jews became very wary of, and therefore they wished to prevent any such future occurrences. So we need to know, before we even choose to look at any particular text or reading in the Siddur or any other of our essential texts, we need to know that censorship was a very real and present reality in the lives of the Jews in centuries past, and to this day many of the books in use by Jews around the world are still being printed in their censored form, and many people, including many rabbis, are totally unaware of this fact. Now, with regard to the bracha, or the berachot that we recite after reading the Haftarah, for instance on Shabbat. The Haftarah, of course, is a section from one of the Nevi'im, of the prophets, that we read after reading from the Torah in the Beit Knesset, in the synagogue, on Shabbat morning. There are several brachot that are recited, and one of them begins with the following words. Rahem al Sion, this is a prayer directed to Hashem to take pity and to have mercy on Sion. Sion refers to Yerushalayim, and the place of the Mikdash, the site of the Mikdash, Kihi Bet Hayenu, because this is the cornerstone of our lives and our aspirations. And then the bracha goes on to state, Ula aluvath nefesh. That is to say, this is a reference to the Jewish people, to she who is the nefesh, the person as it were, or the people who are aluv. The word aluv means disparaged, wretched, downtrodden, made to feel humiliated, etc. So the Jewish people do what for them? In the usual texts read by most Jews nowadays, the next word is toshia, redeem or save or protect. So la'aluvat nefesh toshia b'mihirav yamenu, save and redeem the Jewish people who are aluv, in other words, disdained and lowly and despised. However, it is clear that this is a censored text. The original text reads La Luvat Nefesh. There is also, I should mention here in passing, there is also another girasa, another reading, instead of La Luvat Nefesh, La Agumath Nefesh, which does not make a big any real difference. The difference between aluv and agum is a very fine distinction. Aluv means pathetic or worthy of disdain, and agum means lowly and someone who feels themselves disdained and disparaged. So there the distinction is a very minor distinction, and that's not what I'm referring to. La'luvath or la'agumath nefesh tinkom nakam b'mhirav yamenu, cause us to see our vengeance. In other words, we wish to see and witness revenge from our enemies who have done this to us, who have stolen our land, who have driven us into exile, of course, and dispossessed us, and those who, in our absence, took up residence in our land without our permission, of course, etc., etc. This is the correct, the original and ancient nusach of the bracha. And how do I know this? Because if we look in all the ancient Siddurim, those that were not censored, we find this is the nusach. This is the nusach in Siddur Rav Amram Gaon. This is the nusach in Siddur Rav Sa'dia Gaon. This is the nusach in the Siddur of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Yakar. This is the nusach of the Rambam in his Siddur, in his nusach of the Tefillah at the end of Sefer Ahava, in his Mishneh Torah. This is also the nusach that appears to this day in the Siddur of the Temanim. La'aluvath or la'agumath nefesh tinkom nakam b'mhirav yamenu. Now some might claim, some might think that, well, perhaps that is the nusach that appears in those sources, but perhaps the Ashkenazim have always had a different nusach. Because if you look in any Siddur Nusach Ashkenaz, you will find that it says not Tinkom Nakam, but rather Toshia. b'mehera v'yamenu. But this is not so. We have today absolutely unequivocal proof that the Ashkenazim as well, like all of Am Yisrael, like all the early ancient sources that we just quoted, the Ashkenazim also used to recite the bracha according to this ancient and authentic text. In other words, la'aluvat nefesh tinkom naqam b'mehera v'yamenu. We know this, for example, because I have in my hands, for example, this book, which is the Perush of Rabbeinu Elazar mi Vermaiza, Baal HaRokeach, one of the great Rishonim in Ashkenaz, in Germany, in the 1200s, and he wrote the famous Sefer HaRokeach, an halachic work, and he wrote many other books as well. And one of the more important of his many writings is this Perush, this commentary on the entire Siddur for the entire year. What is particularly germane to our discussion is the fact that the most authentic source that we have today for the ancient and original Nusach Ashkenaz, the order of the Tefillah and the Nusach of the Tefillah, as it was done, as it was kept by and performed by the Jews in Ashkenaz, in Germany, in the Middle Ages, is Rabbeinu Elazar mi Vermaiza, Baal HaRokeach. He is the most authentic and the most explicit source for this Siddur, for this Nusach, I should say. And in this Perush of his, in this commentary of his on the Siddur, he goes through the entire Nusach for the whole year, word for word, quite literally. He goes through every single word from Birkot HaShachar, from the very first Barachot that a Jew recites in the morning, all the way through to the Tefillot of Yom Kippur, and everything in between. And he also quotes the Nusach of the Tefillah, or the Bracha in question, word for word, and then he adds his commentary. And here on page Tov Chof Nun Zayin, he quotes this Bracha, Rahem al Sion ki hi vet hayenu, la'aluvat nefesh tinkom nakam b'mehera v'yamenu. So here you have explicit proof, black and white, that the Ashkenazim as well, like all the other Eidot in Am Yisrael, all the other various communities of Jews around the world, recited this bracha in this fashion. And this is exactly what I said some months ago to a very fine Jew who was praying with me in the same minyan one Shabbat morning, and I read the Haftarah, and when it came to this bracha, I said these words. I said, La'luvat nefesh tinkom nakam, rather than Toshia b'mehera v'yamenu. No one made any comment, or no one raised any eyebrows, at least not that I could see. But after the tefillah, this particular individual, who is learned and interested in all Torah matters, turned to me and asked me, where did I find this nusach? And I told him, this nusach is the original nusach of all of Am Yisrael. It appears in all the sources that I mentioned before, and it also appears in the original Nusach Ashkenaz, as quoted by Rabbeinu Elazar mi Vermaiza, Baal HaRokeach, in his Perush on the Siddur. And he was interested and surprised to learn this fact, which is not generally known. So, in summary, there are many things, and perhaps we will have the opportunity in other talks to mention some other examples of this phenomenon. There are many things, many texts, many statements in the Siddur that most of us use today, which were deliberately changed, modified, censored, sometimes words and sometimes entire sentences and sometimes entire paragraphs were deleted and removed in order that we would end up using and living and absorbing and memorizing a text which is essentially made up and manufactured in order to thought control the Jewish people in various regards, with regards to various issues and ideas. In this particular case, it is obvious that the reference to the Jewish people wishing to see their terrible persecutions, that which was done to them over the centuries, that the Jews wished to see this avenged with their own eyes. This tefillah was considered provocative or undesirable by the enemies of the Jewish people, and therefore it was removed from the text. But this is an authentic and very important Jewish concept. Yes, the Jewish people do not forget, and we do not forgive those who have done such dastardly evil deeds and brought about a reality of century upon century of destruction, killing, bloodshed, exile, etc. This is a central theme of our tefillot for now and for the future.
The production of these videos and maintaining this channel demands much time and money. If you enjoyed this video, please show your appreciation and support. To make a donation, please go to www.machonshilo.org and press the PayPal button, which appears on the upper right-hand side of the home page. To sponsor a video or purchase Birkot Nusach Eretz Yisrael, please write us at office@machonshilo.org.